Don't worry about the language. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
That's a lack of adab. I think that's just their characteristic in how they speak. I think.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this though. So somebody could pull adab out in any way and find anything offensive, right? For example, if I say, hey, you know what? The only way to Jannah is Islam. Someone might say, I'm appalled. I can't believe you would say that.
You're right. It happens. People do get appalled by that.
No, but I'm saying anybody could find that to be offensive and say, oh, you lack adab. Why couldn't you say it in a better way?
Yeah.
You know, but again, all of that is pretty much, unless you're coming outright to insult somebody and intentionally take a stab at somebody, I think adab is very subjective, right? It really is. Adab, I think it comes from the nature of you, what your intention lies behind it. Yeah. Are you trying to actually harm somebody, intentionally disrespect somebody? Those kinds of things. I mean, because, you know, there are people like the Bedouins that are around the Prophet ﷺ, and people understood that they had a certain manner of speaking and a certain way of approaching certain things, and they couldn't hold it against them. The Prophet would say, be patient with them. That's how they are. Right? Yeah. And so what I'm saying is that in this particular case, Mahin could have been making the argument that, hey, look, if you guys want to be that Islamic society that the Western world can look at, why do you have a bleep hole? You know what I mean? Like, fix it so that people have a better understanding of you and Muslims and a better, an image of Muslims. And so while that person may not like it, right? But unfortunately, it's a truth. Sometimes the truth can come off as disrespectful, but it's not, because sometimes people have emotional attachments to certain things, and based on that, it becomes offensive or quote lack of adab. You see what I'm trying to say?
More. What I'll say though is this: most of the times that I'll be like real frank here. It's like I don't think people jump on in my experience, they haven't jumped like. There's a principle in communication. Some people say communication is what the listener does, right? So, I guess he has the right to be offended. The person who I'm speaking with, if he's legitimately offended, I don't think people social media is different. In real life, people are actually offended for sincerely offended. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think on Twitter or Facebook, it's it's an act.
Well, see, the thing is, in Twitter and Facebook, people are reading the words in the way they're interpreting it as, in the tone that their mind is kind of, processing it as.
Yeah.
So sometimes it might be coming off as harsh when it's not. At least I've noticed that, especially when some of the engagements I've done online. Yeah. I'm like, wait, why am I reading this in a mean tone? It could just be
that's kind of scary, man. That is.
Yeah.
But that's why I think it's really important to understand the framework, man. Don't use profanity. Don't use lewd language. Don't curse. Don't cuss. Try to, depending on who you're talking to, if you're talking to your buddies, it's something else. But try to, the framework is given in the video.
Especially when I'm speaking to or even engaging with friends on Twitter, and I want to challenge with them, I have to throw some kind of conciliatory, flowery language of sorts to make sure that, hey, I'm not coming from a mean place. I want to make sure that I'm just trying to discuss, and I want to figure out what's the actual truth of that matter. What's the, help me understand this thing a little bit better. I'm not coming here in combative tone, and I think there are people who do come in with that tone, and they know that they have that kind of tone. They purposely think that they're really sending a message, but they're not. Look, one of the beautiful things that happened recently that I thought about when Dr. Gilan came over, I was like, man, this guy, he knows that, I'm not a big fan of his Sheikh, Hamza Yusuf. He knows that, because I've talked about it quite a few times on the podcast, but he knows that, I'm always coming from a good place. And he never held that against me. I'm sure he still, has his views regarding that, regarding his Sheikh, and he should. But what it showed a man of character that he came here, he hugged me, he ate food with us, that he put that behind him, and he said, what, I'm gonna come here for the sake of Allah and meet the brothers out of the sake of brotherhood. That shows something, and I think there's not a lot of people who do that. But I think if I had engaged with him on Twitter or had some kind of harsher tone, and maybe not him, or it could be anyone, it could break that friendship. You know, if you don't. Sometimes people got to realize like your brotherhood is more important than the actual issue you're fighting about or you're arguing about.
Yep.
That's more
The person
a
is more
higher,
important than the point.
Yeah, the farther
Well,
unity
about
of
that, right?
brotherhood, that's a much more higher priority than whatever silly issues that you're discussing with people on social media. And I think that point is lost on a lot of people, and I don't know why more scholars, imams don't talk about that, especially with regards to how prevalent social media or how entrenched we are in social media.
Oh yeah.
We don't talk about some of these really important points related to just brotherhood. I don't remember breaking any kind of friendship over, Twitter or Facebook because of the way I engage, because I always like give that person the respect and make sure that they know that, hey, it's really I'm just seeking to learn
and
and
get to the truth.
yeah, we're just trying to have a good discussion here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to express yourself in 140 characters, right? I mean, especially issues that most people are debating about, where it gets heated like this. A lot of the content and the meaning behind it gets lost, right? If you really want to have a meaningful discussion about something, it's always best to have it in person, not over an internet conversation where you don't really understand the other person. Things can get lost in wording or translation or intended meanings, right? At least in person, at least if this is something serious enough, right? But the way I look at it is this, right? I mean, the Prophet ﷺ had one way of dealing with the general public, and he had a very different way of dealing with people in private, right? In addressing people in personal conversations. I think he was softer and more relaxed and more accommodating, rather than giving a stern warning, right? He was more of, let me figure out what's best for you, right? Whereas we see, because the way he warns the mushrikeen in Mecca versus how he dealt with them in private is very different, right? We see that happen all the time. And I think people need to understand that when you talk to people on a personal level, on a very personal level, you want to empathize with them, right? You want to you don't want to push them away. That's the last thing you want to do, right? The whole objective, and there's a hadith about that, right? If you're going to get into an argument, the one who leaves the argument is better, right? The one who leaves it for the sake of brotherhood is better than the one who keeps arguing. Why is that? Because generally what happens is you start getting to the point of arrogance where you're not even caring about the argument anymore. You're just trying to come to the point and say, I'm right and you're wrong. Admit that I'm right and you're wrong. It's not even about truth anymore, right? For the most part, right? How many times, I mean, some of us have been on that online forum where in different phases in our life where we're just battling all along. We don't even care about, at the end of the day, that opinion even that much anymore. We're just trying to make ourselves look right. And that's just unfortunately very bad.
MuzzyBuzz, 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 MuzzyBuzz.